Hello, everybody. This is Abby Alcox, and I am bringing you another episode of Badgerland Journal, the stories of Wisconsin. And today we are going to be talking about one of the most famous things in Wisconsin, which is the Wisconsin Old Fashioned. Though we do like our beer, sometimes we do, branch out into those cocktails and we like to put our own unique spin on it. And so today we are going to be talking about the origins of the Wisconsin Old Fashioned. So before we get into this episode, I would like to apologize for the sporadic postings. I know it's been a few months since I made a new episode. Hopefully this month we're going to get quite a few episodes out. I have this episode, and then I already have 2 ideas for other episodes I will get out to you. As always, if you guys have any ideas that you would like me to cover, please go like the Facebook page, leave a comment. That's honestly the best way to contact me. I'm always open for ideas. But getting into today's topic, how I came up with this idea was actually my parents. Because my parents started their own small business, and this is a shameless plug for my parents' business, so go like Silverwood Arts on Facebook. I will plug it down in the description. But they started this business. My mom was making jewelry, my dad was making pens, and my dad started experimenting, and he made a muddler, which, for those of you who maybe don't drink cocktails as much, it's really kind of just a piece of wood to mash up fruit or other pieces of a cocktail to really get the flavors out. And so he was making muddlers, and then we figured we can't really make a muddler without, making some old fashions too. So over the past year, we have been drinking a lot more old fashions and kind of experimenting with the perfect recipe. Like I said, go check them out if you want to find their perfect recipe. I'm pretty partial to it. But it got me thinking, why are we so obsessed with Wisconsin old fashions? Like, where did this come from? Why do we make it different than every other state? So that's what we're going to get into today. So to begin with, what even is an old fashioned? What goes into an old fashioned? We need to know what the base is before we can get into why ours is different. So typically an old fashioned usually consists of whiskey, bitters, sugar, and muddled fruit. In this case, cherries and oranges. In Wisconsin, sometimes we like to garnish it with various foods like olives, Brussels sprouts, pickled veggies, and hard-boiled eggs. We like to do that with everything. Like, same thing with Bloody Marys. But old fashions really became popular during Prohibition, and this was because when all alcohol was illegal, then production and transportation and sale of alcohol was illegal. That meant the alcohol that you could get by bootlegging or making your own homemade alcohol was not the best. So, but people still wanted to drink, and especially in Wisconsin. People muddled fruit and sugar together to make the alcohol more palatable. However, the difference between a normal old fashioned and a Wisconsin old fashioned is the liquor that goes into it. A normal old fashioned has whiskey in it, and the Wisconsin old fashioned has brandy in it. And this is really unique to Wisconsin. So, where in the world did this come from? Now, this is the point where I'm going to leave a disclaimer. I am a traitor to my state. When me and my family drink old fashions, we usually drink them with whiskey. However, in the spirit of this episode, I am currently drinking an old fashioned, done the Wisconsin way, with brandy and everything. Change my ways for the sake of this episode. There's a story that is commonly told, and it goes as follows. In 1893, there was the World's Columbian Exposition, or otherwise known as the World's Fair, in Chicago. And Chicago isn't that far from Wisconsin. So there was a lot of Polish and German immigrants that traveled to the fair from Wisconsin. While they were there, Joseph Anton and Francis Corbel were showcasing their brandy at the Chicago Fair. This was the Corbel Brothers brandy. and that is indeed the brandy I used for my old fashioned, so I'm trying to stick to the story. Supposedly, the Wisconsinites brought this brandy back to Wisconsin where they began making their cocktails with it. However, as much as it would be a fantastic story to say that these Wisconsinites of Polish and German ancestry went to Chicago, brought this brandy back, made this new tradition for Wisconsin, it is incorrect. However, Wisconsin does consume about 50% of the Korbel brandy, which probably helps the people believe the story of the Korbel brothers showcasing their brandy and these immigrants bringing it back. However, and I'm going to give credit, Jeanette Hurt did research into the true origins of Wisconsin, the Wisconsin Old Fashioned, and if you would like to know the history of some other Wisconsin cocktails, I would highly recommend you go look at her book, which is Wisconsin Cocktails. When Jeanette Hurt did her research, she found that cocktails were very popular in 1894 amongst German Americans in Milwaukee. However, in the newspaper article she found discussing this, said that these old fashions were made with whiskey, meaning they were the normal old fashioned that everyone else in the country had made. So if 1 year after the Chicago World Fair, German Americans were drinking whiskey, not brandy, it's unlikely that's where this tradition came from. Luckily for us, Hurt did not stop her research there. She continued on, and she even talked to a alcohol distributor who was around from post-Prohibition into the 60s, and it was there that she found the answer to the story. The true origins come quite a few decades later. She found that during World War II, distilleries had shut down, and this was because all of the grain was getting sent over to the European front for the soldiers. And because of this, even after World War II had ended and all these distilleries had started up, the alcohol they were making was not very good. If you know anything about alcohol, it gets better with age. So most of the alcohol being made was pretty new and pretty meh. However, lucky for Wisconsin, alcohol distributors found over 30,000 cases of aged Christian Brothers brandy. And because of this, brandy began to be sold heavily in Wisconsin. Because what are you going to choose? A cocktail made with bad whiskey or a cocktail made with good brandy? And because of this, the brandy distributors started advertising heavily in Wisconsin because we were drinking a ton of brandy. And so the cycle has continued, and we now have the Wisconsin Old Fashioned. And as I mentioned, if you want to learn more about Wisconsin cocktails, go and check out her book, Jeanette Hurt's Wisconsin Cocktails. So in reality, the story that probably gets told the most is not correct. We did not get the Wisconsin Old Fashioned from the Chicago World Fair, but we did in fact get it from distributors who just found 30,000 cases of aged whiskey after World War II when alcohol was not at its peak. But I hope the next time you are drinking an old fashioned, whether it be made with brandy or whiskey, you think of this episode. Please head over to our Facebook page, like, share, comment. I really would like to know what your spin on the old fashioned is. I know my family, we like to put a little bit of olive juice in our old fashioned. But I'd love to hear what you guys think. Like I said, leave me a comment on our Facebook page. I'd love to hear the feedback. Until next time, this is Abby Alcox with Badgerland Journal.